Molly, I feel like you're in witness protection or something because you're like,
I know.
just dark enough that it's like,
It's just the worst.
All she needed was a voice modulator.
yeah,
Oh my
Miss-
God, I know.
okay.
Yeah, right. Miss
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
The whole ambiance is just fantastic coming from this Zoom screen here.
All right. Well, I got 6:30, so I don't know if there's any reason to wait, but we're going to reconvene into open session. And formally and finally, I want to welcome Allison Eich, our new district administrator, who will lead us forthwith. So welcome, and we're happy to be embarking on this new adventure and journey with you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be in it.
Okay, so item 1E is motion to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, voice vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, new business. Item 2A, notice of student academic standards. And Ms. Eich, you have a recommendation here? You
I'm
want
gonna toss this one over to Jenica.
Perfect.
Good evening, board. So within your packet, you should have had a letter from me addressing the identification and notification of approved academic standards. So each school board must annually notify parents and guardians of students enrolled in the district of the academic standards that will be in effect for the school year. So we are going to be putting our notice onto the website. That's been our past practice, is that we'll be sharing the links that were in this letter on our website. So it is recommended that the list and the descriptions provided in this are going to be posted on our website for mathematics, science, reading and writing, geography, and history for the 2022 school year.
Okay, is there a motion on the recommendation? Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Oh,
So
okay.
moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Seeing none on a voice vote, please signify by saying aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right. Update number 2B, update on fall planning for COVID. And this is a discussion item.
Yep, just a discussion item. So since about June, I've started joining in the meetings with the North Shore Health Department and the partner districts around what everybody's plans are moving into fall. As we all know, things have changed already even since June. Just as far as some of the information we're getting now on like the prevalence of the Delta variant and the number of cases in younger people. And so things, continue to fluctuate. So I just wanted to get the conversation started, let you know where the other districts are leaning, where I would be leaning, and just have a discussion about it so that we can then finalize something in August. So the information that I put in your packet includes the CDC guidance. One of our partner districts, their board met and they pretty much determined that they were going to use the CDC guidance language pretty much to a T, which just states that, any students under the age of 12 would then continue to be masked and other mitigation strategies because they're not yet eligible for a vaccine. So CDC guidance for fall includes mask optional for vaccinated school staff and students. My concern, of course, for us is that that would only be 7th and 8th graders and that they're housed in a building all the way down to 4th grade, where we have students that are just not eligible yet for vaccines. We have no way of tracking who is vaccinated and who is not, which we know is the case in the public as well. But we are lucky to have a little bit more control over that as far as how much, how we protect our students when they're in the building with us during the day. Because of this, I would be leaning towards and wanting to have a discussion around continuing to mask for all students while indoors. The other guidance that came out just this week was from the American Academy of Pediatrics, which was actually even more strict than the CDC. So while the CDC said, within K-12, mask optional for students who are vaccinated, American Pediatric recommendations were just all students continue to mask, vaccinated or not. And their reasoning behind that was because we can't track the vaccination status. Once we do have vaccines available for younger students, I think we could use some community data. And we've talked to the health department about trying to break that down by age group so that we could make some determinations once we, and that's obviously future conversations, but some determinations once we would get to perhaps a certain percentage of our 10 through 12-year-olds that are vaccinated, or a certain percentage of a different age group, if there's a tipping point where we would want to go to mask optional. For adults, I would recommend, and we have been during summer, following the CDC guidance pretty much to a T, as far as if we are not around any students, then it's mask optional if you're vaccinated. If we're with students, then we're masking up because the students are masked up. And I would assume we would continue that way in the fall with teaching staff when they're with students. If we determine that students are going to continue to mask, we as adults will when we're with them. If they're in like a break room or, a professional development meeting with only adults, or, those kind of situations, then we could go back to mask optional for adults that are vaccinated. So we've got Fox Point talked about, the same kind of conversations, and also Indian Hills, because we're the ones that have the younger kids. Nicolay is a totally different beast. They're going to be mask optional for those vaccinated, and just follow that CDC guideline because all of their students are eligible for vaccines, and they can get some community data and determine that. The other thing is the state has offered optional testing. It would not be something that we would have to run. We would just provide a space. They would partner us up with a vendor, and there are about 4 different tiers of testing that we could choose. The survey was due like 2 minutes after I started in the district. So I texted Mr. Franklin, and I said, I'm just going to do it. Doesn't mean we have to do it, but I want to get the survey in. So they have a random testing, and I was like, no. They also have an event testing option, which I think is more for high school. So like, you're about to have a big football game, they're going to come in and test all the football players, like an event testing. The 2 that I said we could potentially be interested in would just be incident testing, because one of the things that we're really concerned about is the effectiveness of our flu vaccine this year, because we had very little cases of flu last year. So they had nothing to really work with around like last year's strain of the flu. So unfortunately, we could have a lot of kids with the flu, which we know are similar symptoms to COVID. So it would be potentially helpful to have a rapid test that parents could have students take. And the other one would be if we had like a breakout. So if we had 2 cases in a classroom or 3, then we would have an option to have all those students have testing available for the parents of all those students. So I haven't like signed up for anything. I actually got an email from them and said, can I get back to you in a couple of weeks? Because I knew we were going to be discussing things, and then, next week I wouldn't be able to talk to them. So that's an option. So there are a couple different, that's a new mitigation strategy that we could take advantage of as a district if we wanted to. So I guess I just kind of want to open up the conversation, like maintain as much social distancing as we can. I've talked to, we've talked about our air purifiers in the classroom. So all of those pieces, cleaning would stay in place. I guess the big conversation with you as a board is to see where you would be leaning as far as masks. I mean, that'd probably be the big one.
Well, I'll kick it off. I mean, I think that unfortunately, what you were suggesting probably makes the most sense. I think it's a little unfair to have masks on for some, masks on for masks off for others when it comes to either school. I certainly think that maybe there got to be a couple of exclusion, longer exceptions, based on distance and so forth. But I guess I'd be leaning towards having a mask requirement stay in place. I realize that there are challenges with having masking. I know that we were dealing with that, this year with, in-person education, but I am concerned about the Delta variant. I am concerned about the fact that, you have people who are going around and who might be unknowingly spreading it, and that there are all these anecdotal stories now about people turning up positive who have previously been vaccinated. So I think some vigilance is still warranted. Definitely, I think it's important to reopen, to keep the school reopen, which we had already committed to doing. As for optional masks among adults, I think that that's a policy that makes sense if that's something that we ultimately, adopt. I think we have to kind of make sure that we fine tune it so that, when we have these things like ventilation and so forth, we don't have any front office facing people not wearing masks, or we try to minimize that, to the extent that we can. Some of this, I expect we're just going to have to lay down some rules and try to see how closely we can stick to those rules. But the one thing I wanted to add is I know testing, I know you can't force someone to get the vaccine, but when they register, they acknowledge whether or not they have gotten, the regular vaccinations and or have opted out. So, we get 100% response rate, and it's either people have their vaccinations or not. This would be a separate question, but maybe it would be a good point to go ahead and do a survey to just see if people voluntarily respond to the question of vaccination. There was this one college, by the way, and I don't think things are going to change. I'm not suggesting that we do something for the sake of pushing the issue, but I forget where it was. Maybe it was Indiana or something that had a rule that required vaccination for its students, and that was recently upheld in some court decision today. So I don't know if there's ultimately some way to push down the road. I don't want to make a test case out of anything, but so we can operate within these confines that we have. But I definitely, masking has got to be the rule to start, and we have to look at keeping that up for other activities. I don't know if YAC is going to be impacted. I would assume that we can't really have YAC still, but that's all I have. Those are just my thoughts on it.
I think we could do a voluntary survey. I mean, we can't force people to tell us, but it wouldn't hurt to do a voluntary.
I mean, I think that in our community, I think that we're going to have a higher rate. I think that more people are going to be interested in sharing than otherwise. Whether or not it's, a true result or not is always the issue, but I think it's another data point that might be helpful.
True.
I guess I'm curious, is the CDC guidance, and forgive me if this was obvious, but is it when kids are outside, are they still saying kids should be masked outside because they're not vaccinated, or is there different guidance? I guess I'm just I support unvaccinated children wearing masks, and I understand the role modeling with adults and all of that. The idea of kids wearing masks throughout the entire school year, I'm not in love with. Obviously, I want everyone to be safe, and I know we will have a certain population of probably adults and kids that cannot get vaccinated for various reasons. So I'm trying to balance protecting everybody with also imagining kids having to wear masks and adults throughout the year when it feels like, right or wrong, we've sort of started moving away from that in other spaces. So I guess one thought would be whether we'd consider allowing kids when they're outdoors to perhaps go unmasked and give them that mask break, right? Because anecdotally, I think it's safer, but I can't recall right now if the CDC guidance just says straight up they have to wear them anyway because they're not vaccinated, or if it says if there's a little bit more leeway. I'm trying to remember what Papa Fauci said several months back, but it's not coming to me. So that would be something maybe we could think about if we were to feel safe about that. And then I would support. My question was Andy's too. I know we can't demand people get vaccinated, but it would be some of that data we'd be looking for once kids can be vaccinated. Once they can be vaccinated, I guess I would hope we would consider how we might want to shift or change sooner rather than later, based getting that data and making decisions in that moment again, because my understanding is it might even be the end of September, right? So it's easier for me to be yes, obviously we need to stay masked, thinking that maybe we may have some changes in, down the line.
Yeah, and the CDC guidance does say indoors.
Okay,
Yeah, so outdoors, and if they can physically distance, then they would definitely be able to take those mask breaks.
Okay.
And we did that, I mean, successfully in my previous district. Recess was unmasked. Lunch was, because they were 6 feet apart in the lunchroom, the way that we set up our lunch
Oh.
hours. And because obviously they're eating. And even there were times in the classroom, like where if they could distance, they would give them those breaks.
That's another consideration because our lunches this year were in the classroom, kids were not moving. So if some of that is able to kind of get the kids moving around and change, that would also help, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And you guys plan on offering sports, right?
What did you guys do? Actually, I don't even know what you guys did at the end of last year.
Well,
Was
the elementary doesn't really.
Right.
Really have.
Yeah, but there's like cross-country basketball and track, right?
You know, I think that we ought to. We didn't have any extracurriculars last year, with very few exceptions. But you know, this is something that we do need to address, because first of all, I think going back to what Danielle said, there is this indoor-outdoor thing, and I think outdoor sports are definitely, you know, a different creature. Frankly, we might have greater ability to step in and get data if it's an extracurricular as opposed to regular participation. So that may also solve itself. But I would like to, and I think that our student body would probably like to, and our parents would like to resume as much normalcy as we can. So certainly, I think we could take a look at these outdoor sports. And I'm not saying indoor sports shouldn't be part of that evaluation either. I mean, you know, I don't know what swimming activities we have, for example. Mr. Wynn, you might have more experience with that from Glen Hills, but you know, certainly swimming is something that I think has been lesser risk in general too. So I think we need to have, you know, look at that. We probably need to have that on the agenda in August.
Agreed. We, you know, again, just from like my experience last year, we were able to do extracurriculars, and for our indoor sports, they did wear masks even while they were playing. We just limited the number of parents that could come. We socially distanced. So we put some of those things in place, but then outdoor sports were, yeah, and like you said, I think kids need it.
If no one else has anything to add, I mean, I guess, you know, at this point, I would open it up if anyone has any questions in the public, just because this is a discussion. But otherwise, seeing none, why don't we move on to our next agenda item?
Thanks, Jeff. Oh,
Okay. So I just lost my board packet here. Give me one second.
We have a hand up.
Oh, we do?
Mhm.
Jeff.
Oh, look at that. Okay, Mr. Howe, go ahead.
You got, all right, yeah, there I go. I am unmuted. Hi, everybody, Jeff Howe. Do you need an address?
Yes,
Yep.
7265 North Wayside Court.
Okay.
One thing as you guys are rewriting policies for the year, I would hope you would take into consideration what is deemed a close contact and what also needs to quarantine, since some of our students are vaccinated. And I hope we do not have a carte blanche rule for some of our older kids who, if they are vaccinated, they have to miss 10 days of school. I just wanted to make that statement so it's on your radar. Maybe it's already taken care of, but I don't think there's not a one size quarantining policy anymore. And I just wanted to bring that up to you guys.
Yep, absolutely. And the CDC even breaks that down differently now. So, yeah.
And I'm just making sure it gets put in school board policy, whatever you guys come with as well too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further hands, I'm going to move on to item 2C, which is monthly financials.
So this is sort of just an informational, it goes along with the discussion around potentially like adding some things to the agenda or making some things a little bit more detailed. So again, I'll let Lindsay speak to this, but it's just a real short preview of what's to come at one of the committee meetings.
So in your board packet, you'll see it's a sample, basically like a monthly breakdown of financials. It has the cash receipts, any checks that we cut, and then the overall amount for the payroll. One of the things that Allison and I talked about was we'd like to have this be like a monthly report, and we can have this in addition to the treasury report that you see. I just wanted to give you the option if this is something that you'd like to see moving forward, just because it gives a little bit more detail. And also just making it a part of the monthly meeting, a brief overview of what is going on in the business office right now. So like right now we're preparing for year end, preparing for our financial audit, and also building and tweaking the budget for the upcoming school year. So we just wanted to make sure that you guys are always aware of where we're at on a monthly basis with activity and what's going on. So if you have any questions, you can ask.
Would we conceivably, and this is just a discussion item, but would we conceivably kind of carve out a treasurer, well, in your case, a business manager's report, and just have you make that monthly presentation so that we aren't including on the consent? I guess we can include in the consent agenda, but I don't know how that would mesh with the presentation. So I would think maybe we'd be taking it out of the consent agenda just so that we can have you address those items.
Typically, we would keep it in the consent. We would just have Lindsay's report before.
Okay.
So that she'd give you that update. You could ask any questions, and then you could still approve it with like the minutes and all that from the previous.
So if you guys have any feedback on the sample that is in your packet, please just feel free to send me an email, or if you wanted something different in the formatting or more information or something, just let me know. I want to be able to give you guys as much information as you need.
Sure. I'm more focused, speaking for me, on substance versus forms. The fact that you'd be giving a presentation and pulling out things that I think are most significant. You know, I don't know if there'd be any surprises or something zigs when it should have zags. I think that that's, you know, just a good thing for us to hear and for the public to hear too, you know, when we have these meetings. So I'm less focused on how it's presented and the fact that, you know, we are going to have that regularly presented.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great idea. Okay, well, with no other comments on that, I'm going to move on to item 2D, which is new business technology plan update.
Back to Jenica.
All right, so technology update. So I just wanted to go back to our April meeting where we moved forward with the purchasing of our interactive display boards for all classrooms. The boards have been ordered. There's been a lot of work happening in the background. The buildings and grounds team need a big pat on the back. They have taken down all the old boards at Parkway and every board they could at Glen Hills. And as soon as summer school is done, the rest of the boards will be removed so we can start putting boards up and getting them on the carts and going. I'm working with building principals right now on a tech implementation team. This will consist of several teachers in the spring who shared an interest in supporting the implementation of these new display boards, and then also other members of the staff who would be interested in a leadership role moving forward with this. We're going to do a train the trainer type model where we're going to have New Line, the maker of the board New Line, come out and do some training with that team. And then also they're going to come out in August, one of our first days coming back to do training with all staff with the support of this leadership team so we can have more boots on the ground to support our teachers. And then that team will also be working on, based on teacher need, what additional training we're going to need throughout the year. So that's kind of where we're sitting with that. So we're pretty excited and it's happening.
What's happening to the old boards?
They're either going to be repurposed or sold, and whatever is sold, then that money comes back into the district.
I like that.
Well, it's not, it's less than 10.
I know, but I think it's important. I'm always concerned about where, electronics go. So, to the extent that it can go to, someone with different use and we get a little bit back on it, I think that's a good idea.
And our innovation lab too. So we do have a lot of wall space in there and opportunities to repurpose some of them in there as well and have display boards. So that gives us more options within that space as well. So we're going to use whatever we can and be very fiscally responsible for sure.
Okay, anyone else? No, seeing none. I'm going to move straight to the consent agenda, item number 3A, B, and C, which is approval of the financials, approval of the minutes, and approval of the seclusion and restraint report. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Does Ms. Deitch want to say
Yeah,
something?
I didn't want to butt in. Okay, so before you vote, so seclusion and restraint report, typically you would have something attached to there. That would be a summary of the number of incidents of seclusion or restraint during the school year. Last year, of course, was very different, and our students with IEPs were in the building like differently last year. I know they were there before other students, and so we had a year with no incidents. I didn't have a formal summary doc, so I reached out to Dr. Rodriguez and reached out to the building principals and was given the information that there were no incidents of seclusion and restraint, but I don't have the formal document this year to give you guys.
We're accepting, and then I should just make clear we're accepting the oral report as a
Yes.
report then.
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, and then is there any discussion? Seeing none, on voice vote, please signify your support by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Seeing none, consent agenda is approved. And we're on to number 4, which is discussion. The 4A, discussion on agenda format.
So we'll get into this more, like I said, in policy because it's connected to a policy, but just a general, we talked about it a bit at the board retreat too. So in your board packet, there's a proposed agenda format. I believe I shared it with you prior to that too. Just looking at adding some things like a standing PTO and foundation report so that, they have the option each month if there's something that they want to share out that they're actually on our agenda and they can come be part of that and have a standing report. I'd love to have a standing spot for thank yous or school spotlights. It's just nice to have the opportunity as a team to do send out a thank you. And when we're in person, it's much easier because then we can all sign a thank you card and, give and actually mail it out to the person. I'd love to try to get students and staff attending board meetings to highlight and spotlight just the great things that are going on in our schools. So those were some things that I'm, going to be potentially recommending in August to add. Also, we talked about Lindsay's piece already, having a standing spot for the business manager's report, a standing spot for teaching and learning report, just so that every department has a space where they can share anything. So instead of just having the categories that are a little bit more vague right now, like new business, old business, that there's an actual space for each department to come and share any updates or anything that we want to make sure the board's in the loop on. There's also the potential to add, and I guess this is very similar to the discussion section that we're in right now, but I was sitting with Karen and we were doing the agenda and I was like, does this go in new business or does this go in discussion? Because some of the things were not for a vote, but we weren't sure which section to put it in. So just being really clear about that there's a section that's items of information, which means we're just going to talk about these. These are just discussion versus like a different section where we're asking for a vote. And typically the section where we're asking for a vote, it's something we've talked about either in committee or in previous months. So it's not a surprise. It's not a new item. It's just something we had to circle back on or get more information or data around. And now we're looking for you guys to vote. So we'll talk about it more in committee, and then I'm hoping to actually bring like a nice version of that template to see, to recommend in August to move forward with in September. There are some policies tied to that, which is why we have to talk about it in committee, but actually not as much as I had anticipated. I looked at the policy around board meetings, and what's in there is an actual example of here's what the template will look like. And I'm not sure we need that level of detail in policy. So that could perhaps just be really eliminating that sample and just saying board agenda as a template is agreed upon by the school board and the administration or something like that. Just a general, so that it can be changed as needed. And then the other one is the public participation policy. So we'll just have to have some discussions around agenda items, non-agenda items, where we want to place that on the agenda. And hopefully as we move towards in-person meetings, discussing how we can have public comments for those that attend the meeting, but then how can those that aren't attending the meeting still submit their thoughts to the board, so that we get those, even if they're going to participate and just like watch the streamed version or the virtual version. That policy really doesn't tie us down too hard. So I think that would be something we could definitely adjust. But the plan is to bring that to the policy committee, look at those two policies, get some feedback from everybody, land in a place that everybody's comfortable with, then bring that to August, and then hopefully implement any changes in September.
So that will be August policy meeting. You're going to talk about those, because there's two additional visitor participation policies. I know they had discussed months back, so those would also be part of the, I believe, or they should be, because they're in changing the agenda and visitor participation.
I think we also
only saw one, so thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, I sent them to Andy and maybe Dr. Moser when we were first starting this conversation.
Yeah.
We have at least two plus the one you've identified.
Okay.
And then I've also been surveying other districts' visitor participation policies, which I think would be good for the committee to take a look at, because some of them have worked with Neola, some of them have created their own, and we don't have to start from, and you have yours, your experience with them as well. So it feels like we could look at all of that and then decide what's going to work for our district the best.
I think a couple of go ahead.
As the policy, I was on the policy committee last session. We did narrow it down to how we wanted to do it with participation. And I think that, Danielle did send the policy committee, or she sent it to Dr. Moser, and Dr. Moser sent it to Teresa and I. I will, if you need to, I will get that to Mrs. Ives and just like let everybody review it. The main focus, and I went back to look why they changed the policy in the first place. And that's one of the things we need to discuss, because they changed it for a reason. So let's go back, see what the problem was of the reason why they changed it. Will this create the problem from before, or are we just expanding, what we need to do? So I have had those discussions. I'm just letting you know that if you need those policies, Danielle sent our board member Bailey sent it, then I will. I'm trying to be we have to give respect. So I'm trying to work on that. That's all.
I think that a couple of points that you made in Zeiss are really good. First of all, we really do need to have a showcase or a shout out. It's something that I've heard periodic criticism about from, frankly, within my own family, because we've oftentimes buried announcements or successes. I don't know if it's Future City or if it's something else to the end. We should have listened up front, and the positive start to meeting. I think it's a good idea to do it. I think that from my position too, we shouldn't have foundation or PTO updates as visitor participation. We should have them as an agenda item. I have no problem letting them in. I think it'd be an important courtesy. I think all this dovetails too with reopening, and also how we're going to conduct our meetings, not just in person, I should say, reopening our board meetings to the public instead of Zoom, but whether or not we're going to have a Zoom component going forward. So that's part of what I think need to be explored. The only thing that I would add, just because I'm a stickler on the rules, is I definitely think that we ought to be collaborative and where the board wants to, and I've never excluded an agenda item for any reason other than maybe it was something related to time and whatnot, but we can't have the board decide on agenda as a whole because you have to have an agenda first to get the board to consider something. So I think that what we need to probably do is keep our process of having board members notify, either you or me to include something, then have you and me collaborate on that final decision. Otherwise, I don't know, and maybe it is an issue. I don't know, and maybe there's policy out there that said me wrong. If there's something out there that allows the board to collaborate on what an agenda is, I'm all for it. I just don't know if that's there. So that's something for us to look at. Okay, if there's no other comment on that, I'm going to move to item 4B, which is the superintendent transition 90-day plan and beyond.
I'm going to pull that up. So we did talk about this a little bit at our board retreat, but it was at the very, very end. So I wanted to just walk through this a little bit again for you guys and obviously for the public. So we've talked a lot about strategic planning. It's been definitely a key area that's been communicated to me. Oh, Karen, I'm not seeing my ability to share the screen. Lindsay, you shared it in the last meeting, didn't you? Oh, there it is.
You got it.
Never mind, Karen.
Allison, do you want me to share it?
Yeah, you know what? I think it might be because I have a new laptop. I have to give it permission. Yeah, can you do it? I didn't set this up in my new laptop security. Thank you. So basically, I just wanted to address the fact that strategic planning is it's a huge part of what the leadership team, staff I've talked to, the board wants to see happen this year. So I thought it would be worth it to just map out a bit of a timeline because we also know that it's a very long process in order to include all stakeholders and make sure that we do it in a way where everybody feels some ownership and that they were authentically part of the process. So if I look at the first 90 days, that's really summer. And so this work has begun and it's just really forming those team working agreements with the district administrative team. We've met with secretaries, principals as a full leadership team, with you guys as a board with our retreat, starting to set things up with the union, really looking at some of those standing meetings that I want to have with stakeholders to support them. We've talked to student services, special ed staff around getting those things defining a lot of roles and responsibilities for different staff as we welcome in 2 new APs, as we really create, have conversations around, similar to what we did at our retreat, I'm doing with the principals around, okay, so here's the situation. Is that your purview? Is that my purview? How involved am I? When do you need to let me know? Just establishing a lot of those norms around procedure and also norms around workplace, norms around how we treat each other in the workplace. I started some of that work with the secretaries that are in district office over the summer. And we started talking about what our norms are as a team working in the building together, what our norms are when we're in meetings together. Creating a communication plan. We're working on the website, so we're all chipping in. Karen's working really hard on that. I still have some to-do lists that I have to get to her for my piece. Simple things like getting me access to Facebook so we can try to use social media to our advantage because we know a lot of families have easy access to social media. We talked today about getting even some surveys or some registration information out, not only through Infinite Campus, but how can we utilize Facebook? How can we utilize the new website so that there are different avenues for communication? Communication plan for me with the staff on how I'm going to have regular roundings or check-in meetings and, just to start building those relationships and building that trust, which we all know is going to take time. I'm really happy that they won because I created this slideshow before the game. That's all. All right, we can go to the next one. So the first 90 days, I continue, continuing to assess staff needs. We've had some meetings lately where we've said that we feel like we're squirreling all over the place, and one thing leads to the next thing leads to the next thing. But I think they've been really productive conversations because everybody's had a chance to really talk about what their areas of need are right now, what they feel are the areas where we want to attack first, what are things that can wait, how do we want to map things out. So continuing to assess areas of support for staff, gathering information, prioritizing the work. So just continuing to do those things to get things set up going into the school year. It sounds so cliche, but it really is about listening. So it's just listen, listen, listen. Tamika, I love that you said there was a policy that was created for a reason, because that's what I need to continue to be aware of. Things were put in place for a reason. So before we start changing things, let's figure out what that reason was, if it's still applicable, if it's something that needs to be adjusted and changed, or if it's just something that needs to be recommunicated out to people because they've lost that policy or that reason. So really trying to be aware of that, and really respect the knowledge and experience in every room that I'm in, because they're here and there's work that they've done, and I want to make sure that that's respected, but then also hearing their areas for improvement and where they want us to go, in places that we can get some some quick wins and some low-hanging fruit, just to have people come back into the school year feeling more confident about the path that we're on and some of the processes and procedures. I think something really important as I have conversations with staff is to continue to let them know that I'm going to promise confidentiality, building that trust. And I think that's the only way you build trust, is when you're listening, they know that what they're saying is going to stay in the room, and that you're only going to use that information to help determine what people need. And that's as far as the information goes. So I'm going to use surveys. I'm going to set up some rounding schedules with building principals, with assistant principals, support staff, student services staff, just some regular times to check in. It's a process that a lot of the administrative team has experience with. So we're really excited to map this out together. And it's such a powerful process because it's 15 or 20 minutes of your time to sit with a staff member and ask them what's going well, where do you need some support, how can I support you, do you have the resources to do your job. And then we talked about an onboarding process for new staff as well, that would include 30 and 90-day meetings where you're doing having some of those same conversations around, hey, when we hired you, we said X, Y, and Z. You've been here for 30 days. How does that align with what we said? How do you feel your job is aligning with the expectations you had for the job? And how can we support you? So making sure that we have a strong onboarding process as well. And then of course, I want to try to ensure that I'm in the buildings and in the classrooms. I've even got 2 days a week that is allocated to Parkway. My day's given me a nice little space over there to work with, so that if I can start my day there a couple days a week, then I can be visible for that staff too, and not feel that I'm always over at Glen Hills. So once we get to January, I would love to start visioning work, because by then I think we'll have enough information as a leadership team to see what the themes are, see how people are feeling, see what things we need to renovate, see what things we need to get rid of, see what things we need to add. So that's where I want to bring somebody in, and obviously we'll have more discussions around that, because I think it's powerful as new staff as a new staff member that I'm part of that visioning work with the staff. So I'm not leading that, but I'm part of the work, so that we're all creating this vision together. Because once you have the vision, then you can start really talking about your strategic plan, because you've got your moral imperative. What is our vision for this district? What is the thing that we all stand by? What is our moral imperative? And then we start talking about the different areas that will support that in creating a strategic plan. So then the hope would be in the spring to really dig into that work. And that includes, that's the community, that's parents, that's all stakeholders in the district, because you want to ensure that you're hearing from everybody as you start to build that plan, as you start to cement those priorities. And then once you have the priorities, then it becomes the work of the leadership team and the building teams to determine what strategies they're going to implement to support each of those priorities, and how we're going to progress monitor that and make sure that we're moving towards those goals, and that our strategies are working. And so to have something, by June would be incredible, because then we can use that as we start building our building strategic plans and our district strategic plan for next year. So that's that. Any questions or thoughts?
I just want to throw out one quick thought. It sounds to me like there's a focus on human relations and, in human resources, I say, on employee relations. And I just want to say I think that that's long overdue. It's good to see that there's going to be some focus on that, in terms of how, there are discussions, the confidentiality piece that you're talking about and building trust and support. I know that we were doing a lot of that since fall of last year. But it sounds to me like there's a foundation here that's going to be part of, the path forward. So I just think that it's a good idea and it's timely. Anyone else?
It looks awesome. Carry on. But no, I guess I would just say I enjoyed the board retreat, and I know your plan involves, getting to know the staff as it should. I'd like to see us sort of continue to grow as a board with you and into our relationship with you as well, and to kind of find space or time to do some of that work as a board together on our own, et cetera, as we go forward as well. So that's my hope for us and you and the district, I guess.
I agree with Danielle.
I have nothing to say. You guys said it all.
I'm giggling. I have to say this because, and now I'm spending time violating rule, but I'm giggling at what Molly said because we all are also as a board trying to work on communication, way to get the information across distinctly to the community. And that was a big topic of conversation. So Molly mirrored some of our target language to a T. So, all right. Well, in that case,
I apologize. I should have done it earlier in the meeting.
all right. I do want to say, by the way, that retreat was a great first step. So thank you for organizing that. All right. Visitor participation. Oh, wait. No, I'm sorry. Jumped over. No, 4C. Nicolay Partner District update.
This was apparently something that was a standing agenda item, so I'm sure you guys remember it. And then it probably went away because COVID came and there were just other things to talk about. So it's something I wanted to bring back. So we meet once a month as partner district superintendents. And at the end of every meeting, there's a literal spot on our agenda that says, what are we willing to bring back to our districts? What are we willing to share with our boards? So we determine as a team, like what is the important information that should go back so that we're all on the same page. So I thought I would start that right away. So one of the things that we're planning is an August 3rd Leadership Summit. The focus is on collaboration between district leadership teams. So for example, the building administrator team, the teaching and learning team. We want to really look at functioning as a PLC. So similar to what I did with, the administrative assistants, and then want to do with other groups is just establishing those norms, discussing what a PLC is, because really a PLC is a way of being. It's not just about a meeting. It's how we function as a team and as a district and as a staff. So again, it starts with building trust. I was very honest in the meeting about some of the trust between, perhaps our high school team over there and some of the staff, because I've already started to hear some things around feelings people have when we discuss data as a group, or feelings people have when we discuss students as a group. So I was very honest with them and I said, we have to build trust. We have to make sure that staff know when we're talking about data, we're looking at data as a flashlight, not a hammer. We're talking about how we can work together to grow, how we can all improve our instructional strategies, because we all want these kids to succeed and it's not about a blame game. So we really threw it out there and we established some norms as a superintendent group. We talked about the importance of all of our voices, whether we are the tiniest school or the biggest school, that we all have, you know, in order to truly collaborate, and that we have to model that if we want the other teams to function that way in their meetings. So it was a really open, honest conversation, and we know we need to build back some trust in order to get to true collaboration. But I feel like it's a group of people that really want to look forward and really want to move forward together and really want to have a strong partnership together. So I'm really excited about the potential of that. And I've already felt that from the partner superintendents in the few weeks that I've been officially here, even before that, but then the few weeks that I've officially been here, felt like my strengths, my voice, and my opinion have felt very valued. So I'm really excited to move forward with that team and do some good work together for kids. So basically, just wanted to give you that update on that leadership retreat and the focus of that. And what we're asking other teams to do, we recognize as a superintendent team that like we need to do some self-reflection, and we need to, you know, build that as a team ourselves and really model that.
I have just a quick question. When the partner schools meet, is the meeting placed at the same spot every time, or does it switch up and go to different districts?
Yep, we're gonna rotate it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Mhm.
Okay. If no one else has any additional comments, then I'm going to turn over to 5A, visitor participation. Okay, visitor participation. Visitors may speak on any non-agenda item at this time. State law and/or board policy may limit school board response. So this is non-agenda items only. If you would like to make comment, please raise your hand, and I will give you up to 2 minutes per person. If anyone has anything that they would like to add. Going once. Going twice. And I am going to close visitor participation. So with that.
Andy, may I say something?
Of course.
I just want to be excused today. I am sorry that I was halfway in this meeting. I did have another obligation. Mayor Kennedy was not in town, and I had to open up music in the Glen. So I just would like to publicly say, I'm sorry. I don't miss meetings. So I do want to make sure that it wasn't just because I didn't feel like coming in. I just want to make sure that our board knows and the people on our board knows that it was a conflict. So thank you, and please excuse me.
A fun conflict.
I made a joke that I don't think the men of the Glen music of the Glen, I said, you know, Joanne Shaw is on one end of the council and I am on the other and 1 in 6 position. And I say, we hold up the men together. All the women in the crowd laughed. The men looked at us like, so it was funny.
Okay. Thanks. There's nothing else. I'm going to ask for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? Come on.
Second.
All right. On voice vote, please signify by saying aye. If you're in favor, all in favor.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, then we are adjourned at 7:23. So thank you for a fast meeting, and thank you for a very productive meeting, and have a good summer, everyone.
Have a good night.